Get started since the recorder is starting the recording. So welcome everybody to tonight's session, Implementing Rich Mathematical Tasks in the grade 6 through 8 classroom. So hopefully you're in the right place. I started making sure I always pronounce the title of the session or the course. When I taught in the community college, I had a poor guy who sat through the whole first class, not realizing he was in the wrong class. So it's a good idea to tell you where you are and what you're doing. So I'm Tina Mazakin. I'm the mathematics coordinator at the Virginia Department of Education. I have a couple of my colleagues here tonight. Deb DeLozier is a math specialist at the department, and Kristen Williams is a math and special education specialist. And the three of us kind of make up the math team at the Virginia Department of Education. So we're happy to join you this afternoon in this session. We are excited to let you explore some of the rich mathematical tasks that are available on the Virginia Department of Education website during the session today. We have about 48 tasks that have been currently loaded, and we do have a committee that is still working on refining some tasks and finishing up those tasks so we can get those put on our website hopefully here shortly. So we are excited to have our presenter here, Dr. Theresa Wills. She is at George Mason University. She is an assistant professor there. She's had over 10 years of experience teaching virtually, both at the K-12 and at the college setting. And she has a really wealth of knowledge to share with you. I think you're in for a real treat tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Theresa to have her get started.
Thanks, Tina. Happy to be here with everyone. All right, so I'm going to share a link first. You're also seeing Kristen share this in the chat box, and you'll probably see it spammed out a couple more times as we begin. And that is where you're going to get the Google Slides for our interaction. Now, I'm also going to project this on the screen in just a moment, but I want to make sure you have your own copy, because anytime you want to interact, you need to interact on your own copy, not within Zoom. And so typically one of the first things I do is teach my students Zoom and Google Slides and our other window or tab our work. All our thinking is going to be seen there. So I can see right now we have about 29 people in there. There's the link again, and I'm going to go ahead and project now. All right, Tina, can you confirm that you all can see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. All right, so here we are today. I, again, have been teaching online for a while. I actually prefer teaching, but unlike a lot of educators right now, I had 10 years to slowly dip my toe into it, figure out which strategies, make the thinking visible, and, how we can use these and use the affordances of a lot of these. Alrighty, so you are on slide 1. That's how you can continue to stay in touch with me. I have my email address, Twitter handle, and YouTube channel, along with a link to the book that is coming out in less than a month now, Teaching Math at a Distance. And on slide 2, I always share this. No teacher should have to start from scratch. I've provided you all with a lot of templates for starting things out. One of the things you'll notice about the templates is they are generally blank, and what you do is you go in, you edit them for what works for you, but there's also a quick just drag this right in and it works right away. Alrighty, the second link there is for Mather Days. If you are interested in seeing what other rich tasks look like in the online classroom, what I do is every Saturday I host a session where educators from around the US and world come together and we do a task and we do a routine. And so there's more up here in addition, and there's even, our most recent one came from the VDOE, and that's on there as well. So thanks, VDOE. And I'd like to see who's here today and have you share out a little something about yourself. Join me on slide 3 or 4. You can pick either one since there's quite a few people here today. Use a text box and tell us what is a success or celebration going on in your lives. It can be related to math or your personal life. And you can use a text box, but you could also use images, animated GIFs. You can, use shapes and fun fonts. And I'll ask a couple of you to turn on your microphones and share out a little bit more with the group here. Someone said they've been married for over a month. How was the wedding during this time? And what are you doing special for yourselves?
Hi, that was me. I'm Michelle Sorley. Yeah, our wedding was September 6th. It ended up being very small, just 25 people. Um, we went to Smith Mountain Lake right afterwards, but I've said that we're going to have a honeymoon once a year for the rest of our lives. That's my goal.
Lovely. I love the way that you are talking about, you have the rest of your lives for that. So wonderful. Who is the lead teacher of a sixth grade team who just rocked Unit 1? Who is that? How's it going? And what tips do you have for us?
I am Katie Edwards. I am actually not on the Math 6 team, unfortunately. I'm the lead over all of ours. I teach Math 7. But their data came back and they just blew our Unit 1 out of the park. They, as a content team, every meeting that they've had, they've made sure that they're talking about what's best for their students, making sure that they're sharing awesome strategies and techniques. They're sharing their lessons with each other. They're sharing all of the strategies that they can think of to help work with our students virtually. They are extending their office hours and just going above and beyond for our students. So it was really excited to see the evidence come back from all the extra effort that they've put in.
Congrats. It is so nice to be able to see that and a way to be able to share it with other people as well. Awesome. Um, let's see. Who is the second year sixth grade math teacher who just got some virtual math manipulatives? What tips do you have for us?
Hi, I'm Kima Johnson. I'm a second year teacher. I just wanted that through Clever, there is a app that has number lines, it has algebra tiles, it has all kinds of manipulatives for the kids. And so I'm so excited because we're just starting integers and we are able to use it. It's called Brain something. I'm sorry, I just got it yesterday.
Oh, Braining Camp?
That's it. I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, when you're using Braining Camp, one of my favorite parts of it is the way that you can make things transparent so you can see one over top of the other. Very cool. And who got the really nice email from a parent the other day? Gosh, don't those just make your day, week, month, year? How was it? What was the great thing that parent said about your teaching?
I just got a really, really nice email from a parent. I'm Casey Burnett. I'm a sixth grade math teacher in Alawite County Schools. And the parent just sent me an email saying that I'm absolutely killing the virtual teaching, that I make it look effortless, and that her son absolutely loves coming to my class, that it is engaging and fun and interactive and challenging. So it was really, really nice to hear that from a parent. We had just started circle graphs. I read a story on Epic Books, Circumference and the Off the Charts Dessert. And then I've been using a website called whiteboard.chat it's just my favorite thing. I can preload my questions and send a link out to the kids, and then I can see their work in real time. So they had to shade in the circle graph a certain way, convert one of the questions from a fraction to a percent, and we kept things moving. So it was really, really, really nice to hear some positive feedback.
That's so nice to hear. Thank you so much for sharing with us. All right, folks, this is called Successes and Celebrations. I do it at the beginning of every single one of my PDs, or if I am teaching a class of little kiddos. Everybody likes this unstructured space to be able to just say, hey, what's going on? Sometimes I'll find that my students are kind of corresponding back and forth. As we see on slide 4, there's a green arrow and a big congrats. We'll also see lots of hearts and stars and just kind of questions back and forth. And then as students get even better at this, they start bringing in their animated GIFs, their little memes, and they start to have a really fun time with this. And it's one way that we can build community. It just takes a couple minutes, and it really brings us together before we really dive into the math. So speaking of which, let's get ready to dive into the math. If you join me on slide 5, I have the norms for success. And again, if you are just joining us, you are seeing my slides projected on Zoom. But in order to interact, you'll need to use the Google Slides, and the link is there in the chat. So my norms for success is, first of all, put away your distractions. This is highly interactive, and your teammates are going to depend on you being able to give all of your attention to the math problem we're about to dive into. We are recording, so reduce or eliminate any background noise. Questions are going to come up. I hope they come up. Questions are where the new learning goes. If you would type them on the very last slide, this is called the virtual parking lot. And what it does is it gives me a space to answer your questions when I have downtime, and it also gives me the classroom management to just be able to continue through as I was planning on reaching some of those anticipated questions, and then make sure I get to any of those that I didn't already get to. We're going to be in small groups, so make sure your mics are on. When we talk about students, let's make sure we're using positive asset language. And mistakes are going to happen. Instead of getting stressed out or upset about mistakes, instead just become a Control-Z superhero. That means you hit Control-Z, or if you're Mac, Command-Z, and it will undo your mistake. Be safe by making sure you're not driving while participating, and you are welcome to change your profile picture. I frequently do that within schools when I'm working with them, but since we are all together, I see that some people have those, and that's fine. Our agenda is on slide 6. Today, as you're exploring this, enjoy the freedom to be able to do the math the way you want to do the math. You are not required to act like you are a 6th, 7th, or 8th grader. You are going to do the math with all the prior knowledge and background knowledge that you have. You can also consider what your students would do, but you don't need to pretend that you're a certain age. You're going to actually do the discourse. We're going to do that together. And then we're going to switch hats. You'll put your teacher hat on, and we're going to talk about, gosh, what does this look like in an online environment? And we'll even have time for Q&A about teaching and tech. If you join me on slide 7, I just want to take a moment to address why on earth we bother doing rich tasks. And it's not just because they're fun, but it's also because it hits these 8 math teaching practices. You will see all 8 of these today, and you'll experience all 8 of these. So right before we dive into our task, I'll ask you to join me on slide 8. This is something I've always done face-to-face or online, but I really like it online. And I encourage you, if you like this, to copy the slide, use it, change it up for whatever works for you. But this is the problem-solving oath that I'm going to invite every single one of you to take today. Read it to yourself as I read it out loud. I, Theresa, promise to try my best. I will make sense of patterns and numbers. I will use manipulatives and drawings. I will make mistakes. I will ask questions. I will listen to other ideas. I will stay engaged by always trying to find another solution or representation. I am a problem solver. I make the world a better place. If you would like to pledge that today, you can let us know by moving back over to Zoom and typing your name in the chat box. Hopefully we see a big flood of names come in here of people who pledged this problem-solving oath. That is exciting to see. Look at all those problem solvers. All right, folks, our task is on slide 9. And the task says J Beans Incorporated produces 2 different flavor mixes of their jelly bean at their jelly bean factory. Their most popular jelly beans are the juicy beans, but they also sell a surprisingly large quantity of their junk beans as well. If you look at flavor guides for these 2 mixtures, you will see that the juicy bean coconut flavor and the junk bean soap flavor look identical. Likewise, buttered popcorn and rotten egg look the same. Miss Chavos makes 2 bowls of jelly beans with her own unique mixture of flavors. The tables show how many jelly beans of each of flavor Miss Chavos placed in the 2 bowls. So you'll notice here we've got bowl 1 and bowl 2 and a little table of information. Miss Chavos explains that she will select the name of one student who can have 2 of the jelly beans from their bowls. It is your lucky day. Miss Chavos draws your name and asks you if you are willing to choose 2 jelly beans and eat them in front of the entire class. You accept the challenge, but are really hoping to avoid having your mouth taste like it is filled with soap or rotten egg. 3 of your best friends give you some advice. Susan suggests that you pick 2 jelly beans from bowl 1. Todd advises you pick both jelly beans from bowl 2. Jamie tells you that you should pick 1 jelly bean from each bowl. Think through this carefully. Miss Chavos will have the camera rolling as you eat each jelly bean. Whose advice should you follow? So that's our task. I have offered you on slide 10 a variety of virtual manipulatives that I have personally selected because I think that they address this problem really well. That doesn't mean that you have to use these virtual manipulatives. It's just a starting point. I frequently provide my students with 5, 2 of which I know that they are masters of and they are very comfortable with, and 3 others just kind of depending on the task. And I always try and put 1 in there that's a little complicated for my tech-savvy students that just need that extra challenge all the time. So that's my formula. Those are some virtual manipulatives for you. And in a minute, I'm going to put you in a breakout room. You'll have 20 minutes to get as many representations as you can on your slide. Those slides are below. And I'm going to set up your breakout rooms now. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It looks like some of you all were really starting to get into your groove there. I had lots of ideas coming out. This is wonderful. So one of the things that I was doing this whole time is I was moving between these slides and also moving in and out of your breakout rooms, listening to different representations. And I was also making sure that, any major questions you had about the tech were addressed and monitoring the different solutions that you all were thinking about. So what I'm going to do next is model the 5 practices for orchestrating productive mathematics discussions. I've already anticipated this problem with several solutions, and I've also anticipated the technology that you're going to use and the technology that you, might have challenges with. I monitored your different groups, and I selected in sequence just a couple of the representations to talk about as a whole group. And in this next part, I'm going to connect those representations through this whole class discussion. But before we begin, I invite you to take a look at all the representations we got in this 20-minute time period. Beginning on slide 11 and moving on down to 17, there are so many representations. And for our whole class conversation, I invite you to join me down on slide 19. So down on slide 19, we're starting off with two different representations. I'd love for the author of the Cuisinart rod, the first one there, if you wouldn't mind turning on your microphone and telling us a little bit about what you did, what it represents, and everyone else can use the little smiley faces off to the side, and you can literally drag them on to show us like which of these is the good kind of jelly bean and which of these is the bad jelly bean, and you can actually move those directly onto the images. So if that orange model was yours, would you tell us what you were thinking and how you set this up?
Just wanted to play in the Cuisinart rod area, so I made 2 blocks, color the 2 yucky flavors, and the green I just made 3 long because they were 3 yummy flavors, I think. And so the purple is just covering 4 blocks because 4 were yummy.
Excellent. And one thing that I noticed that's super clear with this model is the gray blocks. I'm going to just change this color real quick. Give me a moment. These gray blocks here are all nicely lined up together. Was that useful at all when solving this problem?
It just is absolutely how my brain worked. They needed to be lined up.
They needed to be lined up. And the nice thing about lining them up is it gives us a chance to talk about things that don't line up. And we can use those in some comparisons. If you see an advantage to this model, the lining up the grays so that you can look at the not lined up, I invite you to turn on your mic, tell us what you notice about this model and why you can use it as an advantage.
Because the yucky colors have the same amount, you're able to easily see that the purple color, you've got a greater chance of getting that yummy-ish flavor. I don't like popcorn flavored jelly beans. So, but with that particular model, it's very, very easy for a kid to see that the purple is going to give you the greater chance to get a good tasting jelly bean than the green.
Yes. And what we've done here is we've made the yucky stuff constant. We made it the same so that we can compare the yummy. All right, who's the author of our cube model here? What did you do? And if you see any similarities or differences, you can tell us what you noticed.
I believe that's mine. I'm Ray Singletary from Manassas City Public Schools, and I wanted to use the Unifix cubes in the same way in terms of identifying the yucky ones and the yummy ones with different colors. I tried to use colors that were similar to the color of the object. So soap was white and rotten egg I felt was yellow or orangey. I didn't think that was a good. But you could do the same thing in terms of you have 2 of the yucky colors or yucky things in each one of the bowls. So you could compare the amount of yummy things. You have 4 in the second one and 3 in the first one.
So what I'm hearing you say, Ray, is that you've done the same thing in keeping those two constant so that you can now focus on the others. Excellent. All right, we're going to widen up this window a little bit. There are two more over here. And what we're looking for right now, just to teacher hat on, is comparing and contrasting and getting kids to be comfortable and flexible between these different models. So you don't want them always to be using the same model. We want them to be flexible. If you did the two color counter model, which we will start to call the pink model, would you tell us, did you do anything that was similar or different? What was your thought process?
Yeah, I think my thought process was the same. Red was yucky and yellow was not yucky, or positive and negative. So you could see that there were more yellow in comparing the positive sides, or the yummy, delicious ones. And I think it compares with the Cuisinart rods beside it, except that I did not line up the red ones. I was started with the positive ones.
Ah, you started with the positive ones.
I did.
And it looks a little different here than when they started out with the negative ones. But Joy, I still heard you say there's two yuckies in each, so I can just look at the yellow.
Right, you can definitely see that there was more yellow in each one and compare together as well.
So Joy, it didn't seem like it bothered you at all that you were, let me get my scribble tool, that you were having to make this diagonal a constant.
I don't think that it did. Again, I think the colors and the visual help instead of lining it up. But yeah, I think that I started with the nice color, or the yummy ones, because I was going to figure out what were my chances of getting a yummy one versus what were my chances of getting a yucky one.
Ah, I see. Did anyone see this one a different way where you weren't focused on the yucky? You can feel free to turn on your microphone, or if you would prefer to raise your hand, I'll call on you. Did anyone see it differently?
Hi, Dr. Wills. Yeah, this is Kelly. I did. I actually focused on the positive outcomes, and even though I don't like coconut or popcorn, but I was pretending like I did.
So when you focus on the positive, how do you read this diagram?
So let me go back to that. Trying to navigate too many screens. So focusing on the positive, I see it as 3 out of 5, which I see connects with the red one, and then 4 out of 6 total. Just the negative ones are just other outcomes. I just include them together.
Neat. All right, so we've got compare using the yuckies, compare using the yummies. Who did the red model here, and how did you compare?
What I did is I played with I don't know what they're called, and I picked them because I've never used them before. So and the one thing, it wouldn't let me have 2 different colors in the same fraction. So it was just easy to color things, colors I like. So I guess I'm emphasizing the positives too. So 3 positives out of 5 and 4 positives out of 6.
You're emphasizing the positive. I like that you mentioned that. You know what, though, Richard? I have a question for you. It looks like the green jelly beans are smaller than the purple jelly beans. Should I consider that in which bowl I pick out of?
I don't know. I for some reason I wanted to try the manipulative lets you adjust the size of it, and I wanted them to be the one to be the same size. So
what we have now is we're looking at our constant being our whole. And that means that our jelly beans are going to appear to be different sizes. So you can see that I'm using these gray boxes to kind of look at what is our focus, what is going to be constant, what's going to be the same in each model. So I'm going to give you all a chance to look at slide 19, the blue and the green model. And just take a minute to think to yourselves, which blue or green emphasizes the yummy, the yucky, or the whole? Now, spoiler alert, if we want to take this problem, we could almost end our conversation here just talking about part whole models, or this idea of part, or do we look at it as a whole and we look at the size of a fraction, or do we keep the size the same and we look at what the whole is? So this could be a whole lesson and discussion in its own. We want to get to the answer to our problem because I know the crowd I'm working with. So I'm going to head down to slide 20 and give you a minute to just take a look at the different models that are there. So slide 20, we have models, and I wanted to start off with these two color counters. If this was yours, would you tell us kind of your thought process? And you're welcome to move this arrow as you talk about different parts. How did you use this model to determine which bowl or which person you were going to go with?
So I'll just walk through how I was trying to figure out how to use the counters to show that. So B1 is bowl 1. The reds are the yummies, the yellows are the yuckies. And so when I line them up like that, I see that there are more yummies in bowl 2. So I definitely want to pull from bowl 2 first. And then once I pull from bowl 2, I have one of two options, which are down below and are separated by the or. So either I chose a yummy one, and if you look, like, so that doesn't affect bowl 1, but bowl 2 now matches bowl 1, or I chose a yucky one, and yep, so that's down below, and of course that didn't affect bowl 1 still, so bowl 1 stayed the same. If I chose a yucky one, then I have even a better chance, and I saw somebody else wrote that, of getting a yummy one in bowl 2. So it seems like I should go with bowl 2 and then bowl 2 again.
Wonderful explanation. I have a question for the whole class first. And that was why the choices always seem to come out of bowl 2. So let me get my scribble tool here. How come we never took anything out of the top row of each? If you would please type your response in the chat of Zoom. Why didn't we take anything out of those blue circles? Why did we only take it out of the bottom row? And there are several responses here in the chat box. With the author again, I'm sorry, I didn't see who it was there. Would you tell us again why you were always selecting from the bottom row and never selecting inside that blue circle?
So like some of them in the chat have said, that I looked first at my very first jelly bean, which would have been from the top row. And like they said, there's a better chance of getting a yummy one from that. So I chose from the second bowl, and so bowl 1 was never affected then.
Excellent. So I like this way of giving kind of everyone an opportunity to respond in the chat box, just to make sure that they're seeing that your model is your first pick and your second pick.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can head over, we're going to take a look at this abstract notation. Now, all the rest of you, your job is going to be to connect. How are these two similar and how are these two different? So if our author of the abstract notation would tell us what you were thinking, we're going to see if we can connect the two.
Hey, that was me. So I did each person's recommendation, and if I picked from bowl 1 twice, and I focused on the positives. So 3 out of 5 for the first pick, I would get a coconut. But once I picked that coconut, there's only 4 left. And there's only total jelly beans, and then 2 of them are coconuts. So then I found the probability of those 2 things happening would be 3 out of 10 total. And then I did the same thing.
3 out of 10 is what? 3 out of 10
Oh, sorry.
bananas?
I had a 3 out of 10. Okay, I'm sorry. I had 3 tenths chance of pulling a coconut and then another coconut. So not getting any of that yucky soap, even though coconut's yucky too. But
perfect. Thank you. Keep going.
And then so I did the same thing for bowl 2. That was Todd, and he recommended I pull 2 from that bowl. So the first time I had a 4 in 6 chance of pulling popcorn. And then once I pulled a popcorn out, there were fewer jelly beans left, and there were fewer both popcorn and total. So the probability of pulling 2 popcorns out of bowl 2, one after the other, was 2 out of 5. So I had a 2/5 chance of not eating rotten eggs, and then I did the same thing for bowl 1 and bowl 2, which I pulled 1 out of bowl 1, 3/5 chance, and bowl 2, 4/6 chance, and found that probability was also 2/5 of getting favorable, not getting something yucky. So at first I didn't trust that it could be the same. Then I should have known better. But then I also did the Cuisinart rods ones above, and when I looked at them side by side, I was like, oh, okay, it is the same. Okay.
So Kelly, you mentioned the Cuisinart rods above. I do want to check in with everyone else quickly on this one, though. On the other model, Michelle talked to us about a first pick and a second pick. Where do you see the first pick on Kelly's model? Feel free to move that blue arrow. I'll make a couple of them so more people could feel like they're included. Where is the first pick located in Kelly's model, this abstract notation? Okay, I'm seeing them come on down here. I'm going to make one of them transparent just so we can come straight on down the line. We've got our first pick right there in that first fraction. And that's what we're looking for when we're comparing the two models. Then we can go into second pick, then we can go into what the overall one means. And our last one I want to take a peek at are the percentages that are written in text. So if you were the author of those percentages, would you tell us, how did you get those? Where did they come from and what do they mean? We're going to call this the yellow model. I'm going to outline it in yellow.
So Teresa, that was me. And I actually changed them because I realized, I think you copied my work before I was able to fix my mistakes, which is rough draft math, right? But I actually looked at the probabilities of what the probability of picking the bad ones were, because I was thinking that I want the smallest probability of picking bad ones. So for Susan, the probability that she picked soap both times. So, and she's just using it from the first bowl. So the probability of the soap, she gets soap for the first pick would be 2/5, and then her second pick, she's got one less to choose from, so it would be 1/4. And so I did that for each of the bowls, and then I just changed my fractions to percents because in my brain, I think about percents. Percents make more sense to me when I'm thinking about probability. So Todd had the smallest percent of picking a bad one. So that's the one that I would want to go with.
Neat. All right, so at this point, I would usually stop our whole class discussion. And for homework that night or for asynchronous work, at this point, I really want the students to unpack a little bit more the difference between Kristen's percents, Kelly's fractions of getting 2 good ones, and Michelle's 2 color counters showing first pick and second pick that way. The reason for that is when they can see that the connections between those models, they're more likely to be able to explain the idea of each part of the fraction and how that relates to percentages and how that relates to probability, which is where we're going with this task. I love this one because I can use it both in my proportions unit and I can use it in my probability unit. So we've got kind of a double dip there. All right, folks. Just as a heads up, on slide 22, these are some of the questions I was thinking about for a whole class discussion. And I post those there. Those are also in the VDOE materials, which is what you're going to do for the next 5 minutes, is take a look. On slide 23, I have 2 links for you. The first link is the rich tasks on the VDOE website. There are lots of tasks there. Take a look at those. And if you are familiar with that place, check out this task. And if you would spend this time looking for something new that you just haven't really noticed before, something that you're like, oh, wow, I'm going to start paying attention to this one more. This has always been here, and this is going to be great for my teaching. I'm going to have 5 minutes of purposeful silence. If you need to get up, take a stretch break, feel free to do that too. And then we're going to come back. All right, folks, welcome back. I hope you had a moment to find a nice little piece of information that maybe you've overlooked before or you haven't really paid attention to, and you're finding this little extra gem within these documents that the VDOE has provided for you. Alrighty, I'm curious, since so many of us are in a virtual world now, and you may or may not have had experience with rich tasks, but today you definitely did. On slide 24, 25, or 26, I'd like to know what opportunities were available because of the technology. Find any box you like. If someone's in the same box as you, just type in a different one. There's plenty of room. And I'll invite a couple of you to turn on your mics and elaborate. Someone said you don't have to clean them between use. So how did you, interact with these manipulatives in the online space?
Oh, that was me. That I just like that we had a choice without having to worry about the actual having the physical piece out and ready. And you could have all kinds of manipulatives. And right now, if we were in person and not virtual, that wouldn't be so easy.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons, even in these hybrid or concurrent models that people are looking at, they're still using a lot of the things that they learned over these last couple months on the technology. In blue, someone mentioned this dynamic representation. I love the word dynamic for describing what we do online. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. By dynamic, I meant that students could represent their thinking in real time and change it and edit it based on the evolution of their thinking during the partner discussions, the math discourse in the classroom. And so dynamic, by dynamic, I meant changing based on my changing thinking, and also trying out my thinking and then editing that draft mode thinking.
Yeah, so one of the advantages that we have here is, Deb, not only can you edit your own, but if I like it, I can just with a quick copy paste, all of a sudden have a copy of what you were working on. Even if I wasn't in your group, I can take that idea and then change it and manipulate it for me. And that's something that we see a lot in the online space, and it's very unique for that. In pink, somebody wrote that you had choice and not just use the one that the teacher chose. However, I did provide 5 on there. How did you balance that idea of choice versus what the teacher chose in this activity?
I'm the one who typed that. I guess where I was going with that is, and even within my own classroom, sometimes I tend to offer the manipulatives that I'm comfortable using. And I think that we really need to remember that it's not just about what the teacher's comfortable using, but also what's going to help the kid best understand or best reach their goal, whether that's drawing a picture, using snap cubes, using Cuisenaire rods, which I tend to avoid just because I'm not as comfortable with them. But, you know, it gave the students choice and ownership of this is how I can best represent my thinking.
Ah, yes. So you do get choice. And one of the things I do as a teacher when I'm setting up the manipulatives for my students is I love the number of 5. I frequently give 5 manipulatives. My formula is always to include 2 of them that they're familiar with, so that if I have kiddos that want to jump right into the math and not tinker with the tech, that they can have access to that. But I also include one that's always a little challenging because I've got kiddos who thrive in that space. In orange, someone said that it allows for student choice and a better discussion of different approaches. How did you experience that today?
So I wrote that one, and first of all, I said manipulatives available because at my school, they're all housed with the department chair. And so if I'm going to use manipulatives, then I have to go track them down. And so this is nice to have them virtual, where you're going to say, here's 5 manipulatives to choose from. I thought that was really awesome. And they're right there and the kids could play with them. A lot of them I had never used before, so I was excited to just try some of them out. But I also like the way that we went through the discussion and we looked at the way that different people did the math. I thought it made for a richer discussion of the subject matter.
And Amanda, what you're also referencing here with the way different people did it is that actually a lot more students are able to have access to get their representations in that public space. If we think about our classrooms and kids writing in notebooks, sometimes even their body language hides their work. They put their arm over it. And so when they put it up here, they have that opportunity to make it public. And it's not just the kid with the nicest handwriting, not just the first kid to grab of the marker. It's every kiddo. And they get this sense of belongingness and this affirmation that what you're doing is correct when they start to see it on other slides. So there's a lot going on there that builds identity and that every kiddo is doing the math. Lovely. All right, folks, so we see that there's some availabilities of the tech. What you might be wondering is, okay, but how do I design my classes? Like, what goes into that? And on slide 27, I offer to you what I use in designing the online spaces. I use the SAMR model, and this is typically research for how to use tech in a face-to-face classroom, but I've transitioned it to online. And if you're interested in it more, you can definitely look it up. But what I'm going to reference is on slide 28. And these are the questions that I use that are very similar to the SAMR model. And the first one is, how do I do the exact same thing online without any functional change? And one of the things you'll notice is, I think it was Kelly who just used a notebook. Like, we don't have to get super fancy here. We can use a notebook and upload with camera. And so I can do the same thing online. But if I want to make it more efficient, I might choose things that will copy and paste or duplicate. And that helps me in my discussion. I used to have students go all the way up to slide 12, now go down to slide 15, compare slide 12 with 15, and they'd be all over the place. So what I started to do is just copy and paste slides to duplicate. And what I mean by that is how quickly I can bring all these representations on. So I can remind us of all the representations we did before. Then I can take those and I can shift them off to the side and say, hey, they're over there if you ever want to see them. But what can make this task better online? And one of the things I noticed that makes it better are when we were working with all these different representations, we could draw this gray rectangular box around the thing that stayed the same. We could grab the green smiley faces and the red sad faces to talk about yummy and yucky. Now, this gives every single kid a chance to move things around, and it gives us a chance to compare the models and really make them comparative as opposed to just a show and tell. So, and finally, I often think about the R, the top one here being, how can we make this task something that is only done online? Like, you could not do it face-to-face. But I did also want to mention to you guys that even though I'm always thinking about this, I'm thinking about how to use social media, I'm thinking about how to post solutions up and getting more responses, live responses, and more, that I don't always go into this zone. It is perfectly okay to use the technology in all levels. So when Kelly wanted to include a notebook representation, like, use that one, value it, because that is just as important here as using the virtual manipulatives or bringing in the comparative model. So they're all useful, but this is what I use when I'm trying to decide, what do I pick? So I hope that's useful to you all also. We do have a few more minutes here, and I'd like to, put the elephant in the room, point that one out. On slide 29, 30, and 31 are important questions for educators. What are your biggest concerns about teaching online? I promise you I don't have answers for everything, but I do have experience that I'm happy to offer in terms of how I've addressed some of these issues. And as they're coming in, I'll mention some different things. The first one is time, lack of time and the tech tools required. And given that you all teach middle schoolers, who are, by the way, my favorite kiddos in the world, I'm first and foremost a 7th grade math teacher. If you ask a group of middle schoolers what they want to be when they grow up, I guarantee you have at least one kid who says they want to be a YouTuber. And as soon as they say they want to be a YouTuber, you have 5 more who's like, oh yeah, I want to do that also. There's this need that kids have to express themselves through video and make it public. So I try and harness that whenever I can. If I see that there is a kiddo who has mastered how to use those Cuisinart rods, one of their asynchronous days or small group days or just independent work is going to be make me a video that I can use for my class. Now they're doing some of the work for you. They're going to be better skilled at this. You can use them as supports in breakout rooms when a group needs that kind of dynamic. And quite frankly, they might be better than us at making these videos because this is what they are craving to do. Not having ability to do breakout rooms in Google Meets. If you are a Google Meets person, let me show you who to follow. There is my buddy Esther. Let me see, is it Miss or Mrs. Parkshine? Has been doing Google Meets and sharing all her stuff on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter yet, it might be time to give it a whirl because of the community that is out there. And if there's one person you can follow, it's Esther. So let me see. I think it's Mrs. Parkshine. Yeah, there we go. The reason I'm saying follow this is because she gives you tips on how to use breakout rooms in Google Meets. That's what she does. And it's pretty powerful stuff. Let's see, there's a couple other coming in. And part of it, having kids be in front of the screen all day, as a parent of a second and third grader, I have this on my mind all the time. I do try and, find other opportunities where they're using homemade manipulatives. So if you're doing jelly beans in this activity, they can go grab goldfish, cereal, Legos, whatever they have at home, and, model it with that. Take a picture using their laptop computer. And if you are new to that, I'll show you how to take a picture using your computer. So what I'll do is I'm sharing my screen, and you can see that when I do insert image camera, it'll turn on my camera. I can hold up my work. There we go. Take a picture and hit insert. And all of a sudden, my notebook is right there on the screen. And that's really useful when I want to see what the students are writing down. As far as connection, I will tell you two of my biggest tips for connection. You'll notice you haven't seen my video since the very beginning of the session. Upload speeds for projecting your face online takes up a lot of bandwidth. So I cut that out immediately. In the past 10 years, I've only used my video a handful of times, and it's usually during an introduction. You'll notice that we are still very interactive on the screen. We're using a lot of the Google materials, and these are low file sizes, which means that kids can access them without high-speed internets. Alrighty, there are, let's see, I'm just taking a moment to read some of these. In terms of asynchronous assignments, I'm speaking of this as both an educator in the online world and a parent. What I find is that whenever the kids are doing the asynchronous assignment, when it's public the next day, they're more likely to see the value in it. So if their assignment is to create a representation on a slide that we'll use for the next day, they're more likely to do it, or to respond on somebody else's that we're going to see the next day. When it turns into do this asynchronous work and upload it, and we never really talk or see about it again, I notice my own students, my own graduate students, just across the grade levels, not as interested. And I think we can probably make some personal connections there. Somebody says, how do we know when students are needing help, safety, and academically? Safety is one of the top things that I'm always thinking about. And depending on what teleconferencing tool you're using, so I frequently use Collaborate. There's a private chat feature. In many others, there's the private chat feature as well. And I tell them, when you're in a breakout room, you know, day one, if you are ever unsafe, you let me know right away. I will get you out of that breakout room, much like I would have done in a face-to-face classroom. And so we practice those safety protocols before we even begin some of these small group experiences. Another question I frequently get is, well, how do I get kids to use all this online tools? Like, they don't know the Google. And so I gave you slide 32 and slide 34. Those are the getting to know you slides that I frequently use. It's filling a part where I want to know more about the student while actually giving me really useful information on the technology. So here I'm seeing, do you know how to add a clip art image? Do you know how to change the color? And on slides 33 and 35, I have finished products. So you can see like what it might look like afterwards. I also give you frequently asked questions on slide 36, like how do I make drag and drop slides? How do I clone things? Those little smiley faces were cloned so you can move a lot around. Why is my guy an anonymous avatar, and how do I get my students' names? And what does it look like from an iPad point of view? So these are here. Slide 37 is just a reminder, if you want to do more rich tasks with people who like doing these kinds of rich tasks and just get more used to it, I provide a free PD every Saturday. You can go to my website to register for that. And there is one question in the virtual parking lot, which I'll get to. I know that this was pretty specific to one person, but I wanted to encourage you to share what you're doing with other teachers. Don't wait till it's perfect. Otherwise, we're never going to be able to see what other people are doing. And rich tasks can really come alive online. I hope you got a couple useful tips and it motivates you to think about using these in your online classes.
Great, thanks so much. We really got a lot out of that. It was wonderful. Theresa, we appreciate your time this afternoon, and for those of you that are participating, thank you for being here. We hope that it gives you a different outlook on how you might be able to implement some tasks in your classroom. So we look forward to hearing more about this, hopefully, as we move forward and have more professional development to help support this work. So thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you. And whoever was this question about not accessing the links, if you want to shoot me an email, let's find a time where we can chat about this and see if we can problem solve this for you, because I bet you there's something going on with firewalls and whatnot there. So hopefully we can get that out.
Will do. Thank you so much. And I can share what I've been doing as well. It's I've been taking screenshots of what I've wanted and have Control-D and copied and pasted and made a Google slide manipulative. But of course it's, you know, it's slow going, and once I'm finished, it's done and I've got what I need. But I would love other ideas that maybe aren't as time intensive for making that.
Also, have you checked out Lori Fury's work?
No, let me write down that name.
I'm going to give you her Twitter handle also.